Welcome to Miami.
Now, is everybody settled?
Ah, yeah. Well settled in for the night now.
Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2. Good evening, everybody, and welcome along to this edition of The Final Whistle on Lair Media. Usual email info@lairmedia.tv for all your comments. And indeed, we're delighted to have all the way from Florida, Derwynne Honan. Good evening, Derwynne.
Hi, guys. How's everybody?
And we'll stay in America. We'll go up further to Joe Waters up there in Seattle. Good evening, Joe.
Good evening, Pat. Good evening, boys.
And then we'll just go down the road for Chris, my neighbour, Chris Price. Good evening, Chris.
Jesus, yeah, right. So I don't get out of the house. Is that what you're trying to say to me? Good evening. Good evening.
Now, before we start, first of all, we want to wish our regular panelist here, Anna Moore, who's in hospital, and we wish her a speedy recovery. Anna, we're thinking about you. For the name of God, hurry up and get out of hospital, because we miss you on the show, you know, and get well soon, lads. And that's for everybody on the show. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
And secondly, another contributor on our show, I better get this right, Martin Waters. He's himself and 18 more, 19 of them in total, are on a cycle charity event from Nantes in France down to Lourdes, and they're doing it on behalf of the Limerick Lourdes Invalid Fund and Cleaners Foundation. It's 700 kilometers they're cycling, which is about 480 miles, 420 miles. We wish you the best, Matt, and I hope you have a good cushion on the saddle, Martin, and we'll talk to you afterwards, you know.
Well, you know, he's hobnobbing down there.
Yeah.
Did you not see the picture of him on Facebook with Ron O'Gara, your man?
I did, yeah. He stepped in there to La Rochelle to come down that way.
Is there any chance he could take half the Limerick hurling team with them and make them get the saddles over for the All-Ireland final?
Yeah, that would have been good, you know. Now we're going to start off, lads, with soccer, and during the week the Nations League is continued during the week. I don't know what we think ourselves of the Nations League, but Ireland had a win at last against Scotland 3-0. Spain beat the Czech Republic 2-0. And just picking out some of the highlights of the games that I saw, the highlights, I didn't see them all, obviously, you know. And Switzerland beat Portugal 1-0. England drew again with Italy 0-0. They're firing blanks. Hungary drew with Germany 1-1. Wales drew with Belgium 1-1, and Austria drew 1-1 with France. Netherlands drew with Poland 2-2. And well, there you go. Now, obviously, I know, did anyone really get to see any of the matches in the Nations League, or have you a passing interest in this?
I saw bits of the Ireland match on Saturday night. I was going out, so I saw bits of it. You know, they won well against a Scottish team that were, I think, that had got a hangover from their World Cup loss to Ukraine. I think the schedule is just relentless. 4 matches in 10 days is at the end of a very hard season. Is just, you know, you have to remember these players are going back into pre-season in less than 2 weeks' time. And, you know, I think what Gareth Bale says that someone is going to suffer big time, because if you take someone from these islands, you know, England or Wales, in the World Cup, they reckon they'd be playing maybe 80 matches by this time next year with only a 2-week break. And, you know, they begin, it's like flogging horses at this stage now. And, you know, it's just relentless. And I mean, I think Joe got out. If we all think back to the days when Joe was playing, where the pitches were in poor condition, playing against a dodgy old leather football and not having the best of boots, you know what I mean? And they played, and he can correct me if I'm wrong here, most of the league matches was either 42 or 46 matches in a season, plus your cup competitions where there was like no replay, where there was replays and there was extra time and blah, blah, blah. You know, somebody is going to, the pace of the game now someone is going to suffer big time, whether it's going to be, you know, bad injuries, hips or whatever, but it's just coming to the point where these guys, okay, they're on fabulous money, don't get me wrong, but I mean, it doesn't seem to be much quantity anymore. I mean, the matches are just going from one to the other, and it's just, you know, it's just relentless, and it's very hard to get. I mean, I didn't even know half the scores until you called them out.
And Derwynne, did you get to see any of the Nations League matches?
I watched a couple. I've only been out 3 days out here, but I watched the England one of the England games, but I watched yesterday. I saw a part of the first half with Northern Ireland. Was it yesterday or the day before?
Yeah. 2-2 with Cyprus. Yeah.
Yeah.
Johnny Evans got the equaliser in the 93rd minute or something like that.
Yeah, I didn't see. I only saw parts of the first half.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I think Chris is right. I mean, there's only so many games, isn't there?
Yeah.
Before they start pulling injuries.
And I think that the Nations League, the principle is good, but I think it should, Joe, what do you think? I think it should be confined to the lower tier teams so they can improve their rankings. What do you think, Joe?
I just see this as just another money grab by FIFA, trying to get more money out of the game one way or another. If they can't have more teams in the World Cup, then they'll just create another league that is. But the problem here is that, I mean, as much as I love the game, I get fed up of seeing so many games on TV.
Yeah.
It's just saturation point. And you're going, I've seen enough soccer for this week. I don't want to watch any more of it.
Yeah.
And they're trying to make it interesting by this promotion relegation thing that they're throwing in there, which is just putting more pressure on teams to be successful. And it's like Chris says, these guys, I was actually shocked. I saw Grimsby. They start back up training in less than a month. Back in the old days, the cup final used to be the first weekend in May, and then you had May, June, and half of July. Your pre-season training started in mid-July, so at least you had about 10 weeks off. But then it started getting more and more, and now I think you're right. Somebody's going to get hurt, and it's going to be consistent injuries. I think we're going to see more ACLs just because people are tired. We may see more career-ending injuries.
No, lads, I know you see it over the weekend. Man City have signed Haaland from Borussia Dortmund for 50 million. That's Haaland. It'll go up more if you score whatever other clause they have. And then I saw that Liverpool have signed Nunes from Benfica for 75 million or something like that. He's 21, Haaland is 22. Do you see any of that, Joe? And of course, there's speculation this evening. I was looking on the BBC Sports website that Gareth Bale, of course, he's linked with everybody, but Gareth Bale, a strong hint that he'll be going to Cardiff City and to finish his career, which makes sense to me, Derwynne. What do you think?
I think it's great. I mean, there's a guy who's not worried about money, is he?
No, he's not going to worry anymore, though.
And he wants to go and play for Cardiff, which is kind of, I know he was at Southampton as a kid, but I bet he had links with Cardiff at some stage.
Yeah.
And it's home. He plays golf 2 miles outside of Cardiff.
Yeah.
To me, I actually think it's quite refreshing that he's not trying to milk it for one more season.
No, and I think it'd be great for the football league if Bale played with Cardiff, and for the young kids in the club and for all the academy and all, someone local to look up to, and he's a genuine taffy, isn't that right?
Yeah, he's not going to play every week. He's going to play twice a month or something, I'd imagine.
No, he's not. No, I'd say, absolutely not.
Not sure, how old is he?
37, is it?
Gareth Bale.
Yeah, 36.
No, he's not that old, is he?
Oh, he is, I think. Yeah, he is.
No, I'll have to look that one up. I think he's only about 32, 33.
Ah, geez, he's more than that.
I think he's a bit older than that, I think.
Anyway, Derwynne, what's the malaise with England? I mean, every soccer team is in the same position with all their top players playing all the year.
Sorry to interrupt there, lads. Gareth Bale is only 32. I don't know where you're getting your 36, 37.
Oh, really?
I mean, yeah, he's only 32, lads. And I mean, with the guy with that kind of pace or whatever, he's got at least 4 or 5 years to go going by others. I mean, you have him all written off for 1 year at Cardiff. I mean, geez, I think I think a lot of Premiership teams could take him. He may go to Cardiff.
United could,
but I don't think he'll go. Well, they're taking a 38-year-old. Why not go for a 32-year-old with a bit of pace? But the point I'm making is that I don't see Gareth Bale going to Cardiff now. Maybe in about 2 or 3 years' time, but I don't see him going now. He's only 32, lads. He's got a couple of years left in him at the top level.
Yeah. Yeah. What about, lads, did you see that on the paper? Pochettino has gone from PSG.
Expected.
He got the bullet.
Yeah,
Expected.
that's
Expected.
yeah, that's no shock, that one.
And
But,
Mbappe got him fired.
We don't want to disparage someone, but really, he's been up to nothing. Really, he's never managed anything any good, has he?
Tottenham got a Champions League final. What's wrong with that?
Yeah,
Who?
With limited resources.
Who? Tottenham?
yeah.
Oh,
What's wrong with that?
That was a fluke.
Well, sure, the man would. Sure, what's his name? Daniel Levy wouldn't buy a player to save his own life.
I know that was a fluke that he got there. He got
They could have.
No,
Do you know
I mean,
what they were? I think, to be honest, he got them to a Champions League final, and they came up against a very good Liverpool team. And then the following year, Spurs took the money and ran, didn't invest, and look where they are now.
True, but Pochettino, I think he'd find it very hard. Do you know who's in the frame for the job at PSG? I couldn't believe it. I was reading it today. Jose Mourinho.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's just won another European trophy. You know, the guy keeps bouncing back.
He did.
You know, and let's be very honest here. You know, that Liverpool final, Tottenham had to go through Man City to get to the final, and they meet Liverpool in the final. But Liverpool got, to my mind, a very dodgy penalty in the first couple of minutes of that match.
Mm-hmm.
And that really took the wind out of Spurs' sails, I think.
Yeah.
And that was, I mean, that to me was ball to hand. That was not an intentional handball. The guy deliberately played the ball against his hand, for my opinion. But they were so close to it. I mean, it was a good Liverpool team. They had a good team. And then Chris is right. You know, it's a typical Daniel Levy move. You know, when he got all that money for Gareth Bale, he brought in 7 guys to Tottenham. And then not one of them really made a big impression.
No.
Yeah. You know, brought them all in on the cheap. So they've never really invested, and their real opportunity this time is that they've got what's his name, Conte, who has the power to say, well, I'm out of here, and I don't care what you do. If you don't back me, I'm gone. Yeah. And if they don't do that, I think that they're, you know, I mean, they have to do something now, because that team's been together for a long time.
Well, that team is finished now, because, I mean, you can see, I know, Derwynne, what you think of this. You can see that Harry Kane is going to leave the club, and it looks like Son will leave as well. I mean, if they lose those 2 players, I mean, Derwynne, they'll be in serious trouble.
Well, who's going to score the goals if it's not Son and Kane?
Yeah.
I mean, that seems to be the only 2 that ever score, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, they have that new guy that they got from, was it Inter they got him from? That's doing a little bit of damage. But yeah, no, you're right. I mean, they're those are the 2 guys. If you lose those guys, then Tottenham are no longer a serious club. No, in my money.
But what would he get for the 2 players? If he sells the 2 players, what would he get? What's the market value for the 2 guys at the moment?
Well, I mean, you look at Nunes, you know, and here's one where Klopp is kind of getting his lunch handed to him for his comments about Paul Pogba a few years ago. He said, if 100 million, if I ever paid for 100 million, I'd be out of the job. And Nunes with add-ons is going to be over 100 million. He's kind of, he's eating high right now. But, you know, Nunes is getting up, what is he, 20 or 21? Yep. Haaland is 22, something like that. Yeah. So these are the 2 youngest strikers at the top end of that category. Now, Harry Kane fits into that, and Son fits into that. The problem is,
isn't Harry Kane 30 this year?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The problem there is Harry Kane is right up there now. And these 2 have kind of set the market value in terms of age and price. So what are you going to get for Harry Kane and Son?
50 million for Kane?
I think so. Yeah. If I was Man United, I'd go and pay 100 million for the 2 of them.
Oh yeah, that'd be a bargain, all right. The final whistle is a program on Media.tv. Tell all, press the red button on the right-hand side to subscribe to our channel. Now, we had, we're going to move along quickly to golf, lads. Rory McIlroy won the Canadian Open over the weekend. I saw most of it, actually. I saw a good lot of it, to be quite honest with you. But I was also watching, McIlroy finished with a 62 and 19 under, 66, 68, 65, and 62. Lowry finished down the field top 10 or 12 or something, -9, 67, 69, 69, and 66. Good scoring, but you know, when you read those scores, you wonder, I mean, jeepers, you have to really score. But McIlroy, we know he has a good golfer. We know he has potential to knock the ball out of the place. We know what talent he has, you know. But he won the Canadian Open. LIV, live golf, the first tournament of live golf, the new kids on the block, was on over in Hertfordshire. Do you know the course, Derwynne, in Hertfordshire?
I do. Centurion, yeah, it's okay. It's like 5 or 6 holes. Centurion's got 5 or 6 really good holes through the trees. And then the other 12 are pretty ordinary. They're not memorable. It's a bit of a wide open field after the first 6.
Yeah.
But, I mean, a pal of mine went, who's in the golf industry. He went on the Wednesday, just to see what it was like.
Yeah.
And he came back raving about it. This guy worked for the European Tour.
Yeah.
And he was raving about it, that it was so different from a normal golf tournament.
Yeah. A lot of people have said that. I watched all the interviews for my sins, a lot of the interviews about people in the game, the golf reporters now, golf writers and stuff like that. But the LIV golf, Schwartzel won it, of course, -7, and he won it 4.7 million. He won for his tournament, 14. But I mean, DeChambeau now and Patrick Reed, and there's a few more that I wouldn't be familiar are joining. They'll be playing in the next tournament, you know. What do you think, Derwynne? There is a place surely beside the regular tours for it, for LIV.
I think it's a great thing, to be honest with you. I mean, and I listen to these players moaning about it, and listen, I think McIlroy's done himself no favours at that press conference yesterday.
No,
he didn't have to just say anything. He could have been classy, because eventually he will jump ship for the money that they're playing for. He's a mug by playing in the Canadian Open.
Yeah,
and
I mean,
he'll get twisted. He'll get across to that LIV eventually. And I hope every reporter in the golf industry reminds him of what he was saying about Norman and everything else about this tour.
I think that it's died down now. The pillaring of individual players was very shameful in my book and out of order, you know.
Listen, all 4 people on this show right now, we would all probably, I can't believe any one of us would not jump ship for the money that you're guaranteed.
Oh, tis eye-watering.
If you look at what McIlroy's done for the last 4 days, compare that to what Schwartzel's just done.
For 3 days.
Why are you playing for a quarter of the money?
Yeah, but
at the end of the day, we play golf for a living.
I get your point about at this current moment in time in my life, if someone offered me those telephone numbers, I'd take it. But if I was already a multi-millionaire, right, it'd be just one hassle that you probably didn't need to take, because you're going to be flown out. You're going to have questions thrown at you. Okay, I understand that it's not golf's job to be the moral kind of to uphold the morals of the sporting world when you see what happens in Formula One, boxing and soccer and all those kind of things. Yeah. I kind of get that. And I do think that McIlroy, you know, there's an old saying, if you can't say something nice about anybody, then don't say anything at all.
Yeah.
And I think that's what should have happened. But I think
he has a massive deal with Nike.
But I know there was
some really interesting comments in some of the media outlets. You know, as McIlroy thought, how many kids in Vietnam made these Nike shirts for him this week?
I'm not even going to dispute that. I'm not going to dispute that. But
you know, when you start throwing stones, like, slow down a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the point but the point I'm making, Derwynne, and I mentioned this off air before we started, is this, right? this is a made for television event with only 48 people with a, it's made so that everyone plays on a shotgun start at the same time, that there's no weather conditions, and it's strictly at the moment to 48. Right. Now there's 3 new guys coming at the next one in Portland and Oregon. So the question I ask is this: which 3 poor saps are going to be taken away from the first 48
They're
to
not.
make room?
No, they're not. They're moving these fields are growing and growing and growing.
So it's going to be 51 the next time.
No, I think by the 3rd one, it's a 72-man field.
Okay.
Because he's got contracts with these guys to come in later on, move it, and they keep adding to that field.
But when you get the fields bigger, then you can't have the shotgun start.
No, but they'll have a split.
No.
They'll have a morning shotgun and an afternoon shotgun.
But that's not what Justin Johnson said recently, when he says that the beauty about this tournament was that we all play in the same conditions at the same time and
Right,
not have
no.
that split. So if you go bigger when you do have the morning and early starts, that's a contradiction to what he said.
But those
But,
events
you could
are
have,
going to keep evolving. They will
Yeah.
keep evolving into different things.
Yes.
but couldn't you have a shotgun start with a foursome on each, 2 foursomes on each hole?
But
Yeah, you
could get around
you
it, but
can get-
the fields are going to get bigger to where you're going to get maybe 80, 90 to 100
Yeah,
people.
as Derwynne
You're
said,
not going to get it.
I think when it bumps up, and it will, because I think this weekend was excellent for them. I watched it. It was on live on YouTube, on the YouTube. Do you see it, Derwynne? Do you see any of it?
I did, yeah. Because other thing that interested me is you've got lots of comments coming back, as in I can't afford Sky, I can't watch golf because I can't afford Sky. Yeah, LIV are throwing all this money at it, and they did it on YouTube and Facebook free.
Yeah.
So when they talk about growing the game, surely every kid I know knows how to run a YouTube channel
Absolutely.
much better than 4 of us put together.
That's true. That's true. And
You've got all. It's to me, I don't see what the problem. Why should the European Tour and the American Tour have the monopoly on golf?
they shouldn't. Now they won't. It's gone. It's over.
So what's wrong with this competitive side of life? And it's not a monopoly, is it?
No.
No,
I think
I
that
don't
I
see
think-
what the problem is.
I think Derwynne, the PGA commissioner, absolutely gave an appalling interview on the Golf Channel. Did you see any of it?
I did. I watched all of it because I'm sitting there thinking to myself, well, that's someone just throwing his toys out the pram
Yeah.
and trying to be a bully on the basis that we are the tour, nothing else counts.
I mean,
I'm interested. Where I'm interested in this is what's going to be the reaction from the RNA, what's going to be the reaction from the USGA and from the Masters. I understand the PGA Championship because that's run by the tour, so they'll block that. But the other 3, where are they going to go with it? They run open events.
They're open and
All right, the Masters is an invitation.
Masters is not an open event.
No, but it's an invitation.
Right.
So where
yeah,
does
so
that one run? Is that
Oh.
that does that just we just stay where we are?
Well, no. It's what's going to happen is the guys that have won, the guys that are eligible to play for the Masters will continue to play the Masters, whether they're on this LIV tour
Yeah.
or not. The ones that are going to the US Open, which is run by the USGA, and the RNA with the Open, they can invite who they want, and if you qualify, then you qualify. As you mentioned yourself, the ones that are going to have the issue is the USPGA. And you know what? It may be a time of the year when there's so many going on. Some of those guys have moved over and said, you know what? It's always was seen as to be the least of the 4 majors. They might say, well, you know, a week off work, maybe no hassle for us.
Yeah,
It's the weak one out of the 4, yeah.
it is. And Derwynne, I dare say I'm going to predict by this time next year, if I'm around this time next year, when the LIV gets more established after this year, and more people, I predict more people will come over to it because it suits their schedule just to be playing once a month, a guaranteed income once a month. I think that there's going to be a lot.
I think my personal feeling is that I just have an issue about appearance money. I do. They did that years ago with the likes of Sevi and all that, and then they put a ban on it, as you know. I just feel if someone, this is just a personal matter, you may say I'm wrong, but this is where I feel. I think once you have an appearance money for that, right, where you're guaranteed X amount just for turning up, the problem that you have is you're going down the Super League road in soccer where there's no jeopardy. That there's when you have no cut, then you know if you've got a bad first round, all you gotta do is just turn up at the tee box on the next 2 days and you're still gonna get paid. My feeling is this, is that they have to have a cut. That if the fields get bigger, they have to have a cut.
They will. I think they will.
And my feeling is this, is that if you have a situation where, you know, and you look at even the scores this week, some of the guys who have been taking sign-on fees, they're way down to the over the weekend. And I just feel like what you don't want it to be is an event where people are turning up and they're thinking if they don't play well in the first round or two, they can just sit back and kick off the heels. That'd be my fear.
You see,
McIlroy would have picked up £500,000 last week for playing in Canada from the Royal Bank of Canada. They're paying appearance money, whether we like it or not.
Yeah.
That might be that they go, there's no appearance money. I can guarantee you, McIlroy will turn up for one golf day in Canada for Royal Bank of Canada, and that would have been the cover money for him playing in their tournament. He'll do one corporate day for $500,000.
But that's not part. Yeah, but I understand your point. But that 1 day corporate is not strictly.
No, that's
Okay.
because we
We'll
can't
agree
pay appearance money. So what we'll do is we'll book you for 1 day. Justin Thomas would have got the same deal. Every current Ryder Cup player playing in the RBC would have got appearance money. They'll be turning up for a golf day somewhere along the line.
Yeah, and
that's how they get around appearance money.
I must say, as you said, Derwynne, I'm not a golfing expert, but I love watching Justin Thomas. I really saw more of him this weekend than I ever did before as a golfer, and I think it's just fantastic. Fantastic.
I just think LIV are just being upfront with what they're doing rather than being covert like every company does.
But as the
bigger, you know what will happen though? You know, Chris is talking there that when all these guys come over, how are they going to make the cut? Well, what they'll do, if to my mind, what they would do is that they would have on the Monday and Tuesday, they would have a pre-qualifying event for players that did not reach a certain standard in the tournament. And if some are knocked out, then they have to come to the next one and qualify for that one. And then they'll end up playing 6 days a week, as opposed to people that have already qualified to get in for a 4-day tournament.
Well, I'd be honest with you, Joe. I understand your point. My main issue with it is, okay, the money is outrageous, but that's, if people want to pay that money, let them take their chances. My main problem is this, is that the fellas who have signed up to this in the initial stages, and I know you're going to say to me, well, there's going to be bigger fields, but when you look at the 48 that started last weekend, there's no saying here they've been sold a pub like a pick and a poke, because you just wonder, will half of that 48 that are playing last week, will they be there next year when the big fish come looking for the big fish?
I think that the money up front, obviously, as Derwynne, and I think we all agree, is eye-watering. They need to get it established. They need to get it established quickly. I can see the thinking behind it. I think, like everything else, this will eventually find its own space and settle down, And I dare say this time, 12 months, as I said, we will not be talking about LIV golf. I think we'll be accepting of it as another vehicle to promote the game of golf, as Derwynne was saying, another outlet for people to see these top-class golfers. I'm surprised at a lot of them, but then when I looked around it, I'm not surprised in another way that so many people, you have Mickelson, DeChambeau, Poulter, Westwood, Johnson, Schwartzel, who's Susan, they're all household names, every one of them. And of course, the interview that you should all look at on YouTube is the one with Greg Norman, right? That's just fantastic, the CEO of LIV. I thought he was very good. Did you see?
But the PGA might be the one.
It will just keep evolving. Go on, Joe.
I was going to say, maybe, as we were looking at this, we're looking at the wrong end of it. Maybe the PGA is going to be the one that's in the most trouble. Because if all these others, like you pointed out, if if the British Open is invitation, if the US Open is invitation or qualify by, and then the Masters is by invitation, and these guys are getting invited to that, what's to stop the LIV Tour from putting a head-to-head competition against the PGA on their week?
Well, they have enough money to do anything like that.
And that's what I'm saying. So all of a sudden, the PGA becomes an island on its own because the other three have a different. People might just turn around and say, "Well, you know what? We really don't care about that one because we're still in three majors."
Yeah, you're only just after arriving there and out there, but I wonder what are the chances of getting one of the main what do I call television channels behind this, you know, and to throw in their lot with them, you know.
I think this thing will just keep evolving into something every month, 6 months, whatever. It will change itself from what it is now to something else. And I don't get it. I mean, golf pros are golf pros. They play for money. You know, you'd play the M25 if the money was good enough.
Yeah.
And no one in their right mind is going to moan about it. No. And you listen to Moynihan going on about, you know, having no PGA Tour players ever had to apologise for where their prize money's come from. Well, hang on a minute. You bang tournaments out in China. Do you want to talk about their human rights? You can't. If you're going to bang on about Saudi's human rights the way he has, then take all the other places into account as well where they take the tour. You can't just shelve off to the Saudis saying they're bad people. Because I bet if the Saudi LIV or the public investment company from Saudi had turned up at the PGA headquarters up the north here in Jacksonville and said, we'd like to sponsor 15 events on the tour for whatever, 500 million, they would have taken that money.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that.
Because they are not involved in it, it's like sour grapes, as in it's not a real event because we're not involved in it.
I know, yeah. I think silence would be better now from the PGA and really look at their own house, really. The Final Whistle is the programme on lairmedia.tv. Tell all your friends about us. Our email info@lairmedia.tv and press the red button to subscribe to our channel. We're going to the United Rugby Championship here. If people have been following it, was down to the last four over the last few days. And of course, the two South African teams reached the final. The Stormers, the Stormers and the Bulls. I must say, I saw the two of them. I saw the end of the Leinster match, where I saw most of the other match with Ulster and the Stormers. The Leinster Bulls match was a cracking match, I thought. 26-27 to the Bulls, and the Stormers beat Ulster 17-15. I mean, really, would you see any of it, Chris?
Saw the Leinster match on Friday night, and yeah, I mean the Stormers played a stormer. Pardon the pun. They were really very, very good.
They were.
I don't know what the story was why Johnny Sexton didn't start. I don't know about that. I don't know what the crack was there, but yeah, they got. I think again, how long is a season last in rugby? Playing in mid-June, you know.
Yeah.
Rugby used to finish in early May.
I know.
And and these players are now going to go to New Zealand for 3 weeks. And before they know it, they're going to be hitting back into a big season again. So again, even the rugby fellas are beginning to feel it as well. And there's a lot of injuries.
As we mentioned, our friend Raj La Rochelle got beaten by Toulouse 33-28 in the playoff top 14. But there you go. Their season is over. But I think a lot of them are glad that it's over, as you said, Chris.
Yeah, it's a long season. I mean, look, I mean, I don't know why Sexton didn't play. I mean, was it a calculated risk thinking, well, the final is next week. Are we going to, how can you rest a player like that for a semi-final? It doesn't make sense.
I don't know.
Was he injured? I didn't hear anything. The commentary, even though it was Osquailger, didn't pick up any injury. All I could hear was he was coming on with 20 minutes to go when they were 10 points down.
You mean, Chris, you don't speak Irish?
Can't fall.
My God, you don't speak Irish.
I can understand it, but I just can't. I see. It's a
I know,
bit
I
like
know.
I tell you what it is, right? It's a bit like my German as well. It's a bit
But
like the and
it's
Derwyn will get this. It's a bit like the old Morecambe and Wise joke with Andre Previn years ago. I'm playing the notes I know all the right notes, but not necessarily in the right order. That's
Yeah.
the word. They're my words in Irish and
Okay.
German. They just need to put them in the right order, you see?
We lost a great taffy over the weekend, Derwyn, and Phil Bennett. Phil Bennett passed away over the weekend.
He was some player.
He was just. Do you remember him, Derwyn?
Yeah, I do.
And you're a bit too young. I think you're slightly too young to. Although you probably would remember him a bit. All right.
Me, I remember him. I remember Phil Bennett in the 70s. Yeah.
He was one of the first Welshmen to captain the British and Irish Lions on their tour. He won in the 1970s, of course, it's the glory time for Welsh rugby, you know, but Phil Bennett was superb before his time. And he was the star player, and I'm just reading out a bit here, in the tour of South Africa in 1974 when they went unbeaten. That Lions tour in 1974, they went unbeaten in South Africa. And he made 20 appearances for the Barbarians. I think that try that they showed, you know, that try that started in their own line, that's a famous, iconic try.
Against New Zealand.
He made 8 test appearances for the Lions, captain of in the 1977-90, he captained them to New Zealand. He was made an OBE in 1979 and he entered the Hall of Fame, Rugby Hall of Fame in 2005. But Phil Bennett.
There's a great story about another, I'll tell Derwyn this one here. There's a great story about another Welsh rugby player, Gareth Edwards, who was invited to the 1986 All-Ireland final. And they interviewed him after the match, and Michael Lester, the presenter, says, what did you think of the match? Great game, fantastic, brilliant skill and all that. And he turned around and said to Gareth Edwards, he says, I say you'd love to be in the middle of that crowd with a hurley stick. He says, well, I put it this way, I wouldn't like to be in the middle of them without one.
Gareth Edwards. But that was poor Phil. So you can read about. There's some great clips actually of Phil Bennett in because I was looking it up and I heard the news of. There's still a lot of good clips of his play and all. Do you remember Phil Bennett, Joe?
Yeah. Actually, I got him and John Dawes mixed up a couple of weeks ago when we talked about John Dawes when he passed away.
Yeah.
No, Phil Bennett was a superb player. And he was the one that when they went with the Lions that Mike Gibson had to go and play centre.
That's right.
And it was our half. So terrific player, absolutely terrific.
I was at a dinner down in Wales for Welsh Rugby Union Golf Day, and he stood up and told a great story about Willie John McBride and the shout of 99.
Yeah.
He said that the shout goes up at 99. He said everybody grabs the nearest South African and they start scrapping. He said we all get back in the changing rooms and someone turned around to Phil Bennett and said, who did you grab? And he said, didn't you see me grab the ball boy?
Because he was a good little one, as they said. I was rest in peace, Phil Bennett, and you've joined all your pals as well. And there's great big football field in the sky. Final Whistle is a program on their media.tv. Press the red button to subscribe to our channel. We just briefly run along the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. Of course, it looks like Verstappen is going to dominate the Grand Prix circuit this year. He won again. Perez was second, and Russell was third, and Hamilton fourth. But I think it's Verstappen's year. You know,
Verstappen's year.
Only after 8 races, but I think really he's untouchable. The car is good, of course, as well. Red Bull are very strong now, so I think they haven't won already.
They do. Ferrari's engines were shot. I watched it yesterday.
Yeah.
And before I went out playing golf, and because the young lad kind of basically tied me to the seat watching it.
Yeah.
And I mean, Ferrari were doing well until the engines in both cars went. And one was a power unit as well. I think that's what it was.
Yeah.
Hamilton is in trouble, and I think he's physically in trouble. He's complaining of back and neck issues now. There's actually talk he mightn't even go to Canada next week, although he says no, he will go. So it's coming to I think, as the lads have said there, Verstappen is going to probably walk it, and it won't come to anywhere near the final race. It could be over by
God,
maybe
no.
September, I say. You know.
Yeah, it won't be
Yeah.
like the brilliant. Do you remember? Well, Joe and myself remember this. Now we'll excuse to Joe. We remember the wonderful tussle between the great, what's his name, Nicky Lauda and Hunt. Do you remember that in the 70s?
Oh yeah,
70s,
yeah,
James Hunt. Oh man,
yeah.
that to me was just superb. There's a film made about it, wasn't there?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. Rush.
Well,
Wasn't it?
Right.
James Hunt, lads, was some character, absolutely some character. And the guy who owned the car as well. You know,
Yeah, Lord, they would Lord something or other.
yeah. They used to drink a bottle of whiskey each, I think, sometimes before the race started. I'm just thinking to myself, you know, how they sat into the car as well. But Lord and himself were great, you know. Pity, of course, another man that died before his time, as I say, James Hunt. But anyway, that was the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. Tennis, Andy Murray got into his first grass court final over the weekend, the Mercedes Cup, and he met Berrettini in the final. But Murray is playing very well. I was following him during the week because as Wimbledon is around the corner, and Berrettini beat him in 3 sets, 6-4. Murray won the second set, 7-5. And then Berrettini won the third set, 6-3. But Murray will be looking at a draw in Wimbledon. Now, there'll be no Nadal in Wimbledon. There'll be no Federer. And Djokovic, to me, will be probably the favourite.
There may not be a Murray.
No?
He's pulled out now. Maybe he's pulled out of Queens as a precaution measure,
Yeah.
but he has abdominal problems.
Yes.
And
Well,
you know, there's no Medvedev as well. Remember, because he's banned from Wimbledon.
Yeah, which is shocking, yeah.
Right. So you've got maybe 3 or 4 top class guys that are not going to be there. So look, if Murray was in top form, you know, you'd be looking at maybe a quarterfinal, semi-final. Even if he's there, he won't get past the third round. I just have a sneaky feeling he won't make it.
Yeah, it'd be pity, but anyway, he probably won't. What is he, 36, 37? He'll probably retire anyway, you know, because he struggled a lot with injury. And it's not the hip that he got fixed. He has a pain in the other hip now as well, you know, which is a bad sign, lads, isn't it? Joe, you'd appreciate that. If, you know, like the wear and tear on your joints, even as an athlete for years and years playing soccer. How did you manage, Joe, to avoid all those tackles from the likes of Nobby Styles and all them?
well, yeah, you became a good jumper. You became.
It wasn't Nobby Styles with him, surely.
Oh, we played together. We played together up in the Markets Field in a testimonial match.
Yeah.
Night. Yeah. Myself, Nobby, Shea Brennan, Al Finucane, Kevin Fitzpatrick.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think who else played. Johnny Matthews was in
Johnny
that team.
Matthews.
Alfie Hale was, I think, in that team with us.
Yeah.
I have a photograph of it somewhere.
Joe
Somebody
Manny.
took and gave to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was it was pretty neat. But yeah, it was fun. But I mean, you know, tennis is a lot more really physically demanding than soccer.
Yeah.
In terms of what your joints have to go through.
Yeah.
Just the amount of ground that you have to cover, and just the sheer jarring of all that power,
The joints.
you know, being slammed and having to change directions. That I mean, that is huge. And you know, when you're talking about going to 5 sets on those, sometimes, you know, it is. I mean, tennis really is a very, very physically challenging game.
And the only Grand Slam on grass is Wimbledon, and so at least you have a bit of give, as you say, on grass. But on hard courts and clay, it's dead weight for you. It's dead.
But we talked about that last week at Roland Garros, right?
Yeah.
It's you know, clay is. We used to have a clay on the gym floor at Leicester at the training ground, and we used to play indoors quite a lot on it. It was a great big area, but it really was. I mean, they had to come in and water it every day to soften it
Yeah.
up a little bit, so you'd have some give on it.
So that's well, we wish Andy Murray well. Maybe Djokovic might do the 21. I don't know, because Nadal won Roland Garros, and so he's on 22. Yeah, he's on 22 Grand Slams. GA, we're just touching GA. The Gaelic football is down to the last 8 here on this side of the world. You had wins over the weekend for Clare, Cork, Dublin and Armagh. They joined the 4 provincial winners: Derry, Dublin, Kerry and Galway. So now, Chris, Cork, Clare and Galway can win the double. You know
Yeah,
that.
we're a dual county now, where we can we're kind of jack of all trades, masters of none. You know, so that's what you know.
Well, the draw was made. You saw the draw this
I
morning.
saw the draw. I was up this morning before work, and I saw the draw. Look, Clare were brilliant. I mean, they scored a goal in fee and injury time to beat Roscommon, who, you know, in fairness, Clare were better than what the scoreline suggested. But when sometimes counties like that, when they make, I mean, Limerick, I give Limerick, I watched the first half of the Limerick match, and they were far, far better than Cork. They had about 8 chances right in front of the goal that they missed.
Yep.
And you can't miss them at that level. And then Cork get a soft, they get a penalty, and then they get a bit of momentum, and then they get a black card, which I don't think was a black card. How Mayo won that game, I don't know. I didn't see much of it, but I saw the highlights of it, and they looked very, very poor. Going to the quarterfinals, I fear for Cork against Dublin. I really do. I fear
they have
for
no chance. They have
absolutely
no
no chance. I think Clare will be competitive against Derry for about 50 minutes.
I think that'll be a good match. I think I think that Mayo have no chance against Kerry.
Armagh and Galway will be I think tired around. I think that's a decent Armagh team, and we'll see what Galway to do. And I think Mayo have shot their bolt. I do think it's going to be Dublin versus Kerry in the All-Ireland final, and I think it's going to be Armagh and Derry in the other semi-final. Clare will give it a shot, but I just think they don't have.
I think Galway might have enough for Armagh.
We'll see, but I think Armagh are battle hardened at this stage. A lot of hard matches. They've got good forwards that can score goals, which is important. So I go with that. But but next week is different now because we've got the hurling quarterfinals. And
you've Cork and Galway and Wexford and Clare.
And Clare, yeah. I think the disappointing thing about the Clare thing is that is the 2 imminent suspensions that are going to come this week. I think that's definitely.
Well, they'd be
look. I'm not going to. The only thing I'm going to say is this: is that Derwynne would know, but Joe does know. In the game of hurling, you need 2 referees at that level to see everything, and I think it's disingenuous to have on your main highlight show 1 pundit from 1 county who is. We all know he's involved in some level. I mean, he has such close ties to the players. Even yesterday, he was 4 balls ahead of me, playing with the current fullback for the Limerick team. So for anybody to say that he's not part of the scene, very disingenuous. And for another guy who was basically the stooge for him to set up what happened. And if you're going to review, and this is the point I'm making, if you're going to go on an amateur game on national television and review just 2 instances, then it's not fair you have to review them all. And I can guarantee you there was at least 6 instances that I could come off the trip of my tongue that I saw in green jerseys, but I'm not going to highlight it here because it would seem as if it's sour grapes. It's not sour grapes. But I just think is that, and I went back on to an article from 2007 when an All-Ireland semi-final referee, Brian Crowe from Cavan, he was asked to review by video, and this is the way to do it. They send a clip to the referee on the day and says, do you think you should have given this either a yellow card or a red card? He turned around and says, no, I'm happy with my decision. The man never refereed another match at that level again. And that's what they do to you. I know. That's exactly what they do. And the point I'm making is this, that the pressure was put on that hurling referee last week to say, do you think you should do this or do you think you should do that? He knows too well that if he doesn't do what he's told, he's not going to be refereeing again.
Yeah. And you notice as well, just before we finish that, the Cork Antrim preliminary quarter final was played in Corrigan Park in Belfast. and they had a Galway referee, and Cork were supposed to meet in Galway next, which I thought was very, very poor form by the GA, putting the Galway referee there.
100%. Totally agree with it. But this is because we are a small place and there's not enough top class referees. I mean, they're going to the depths of Wicklow or, look, in fairness to the guy who refereed that match, my son would say to me about when he played soccer, he said, as a guy who I used to go to school with, he says, I don't like him as a referee. And I says, well, look, this is what we have as referees because no one else wants to do it. Until other people do it, this is what you're stuck with, right? No. But the point I'm making is that I just feel that the comments that came out after what happened last weekend about the two guys that got, and what's going to happen is that it's been proposed that they will get a 1-match ban, which will rule them out of a quarterfinal. Now it's up to Clare to go and contest it if they wish. But if you do contest it, they could easily upgrade it to maybe 2 matches or whatever. But your chances of getting turned over are very slim.
We might have been unfair to Derwynne, lads, at the start of the show. He's not just there for the sunshine. He's not just over there to soak up the atmosphere and have a few whatever he's going to have later on, a few iced cold drinks. But Derwynne, you're over there to do a bit. You're over there to do a bit of business as well, aren't you?
I am. Yeah, we've just signed. Signed up.
Tell the lads that'll be watching the show. I should have asked you earlier on. Yeah.
So Dragonfly Golf, 3D motion capture system, just signed up Rick Smith to be an ambassador for the company in America.
Fantastic.
We've got. Hopefully, we're getting Mickelson in the suit this week. Here. If he's not at the US Open, which I don't think he is, unless he's had a change of heart. So yeah, no, it's all good. And I can only tell you, it's baking hot here. It's 90 odd degrees.
Oh God.
Very, very humid.
We have the windows we have the windows closed here. That's how warm to see here.
So do we here.
I'm gonna hit some golf balls tomorrow and I'm not looking forward to that at all.
But Derwynne, what's the name of the Dragonfly?
Dragonfly Golf.
Dragonfly Golf, lads, if you want to look it up there, Dragonfly Golf. And good old Phil Mickelson, be great. It'd be great to get a chat with him sometime, because
get your checkbook out, Pat.
Yeah.
No. Get your blackjack table out.
I wouldn't have said that. You see, I'd be if I had said that, you'd have censored me.
Sure, he's well known, like he's
allegedly, Chris. Allegedly.
He'd have censored me for that.
Yeah, allegedly. Yeah, sorry, that's the word. I nearly always forget that, lads. It's been another blast on another Sunday night. But just the final word on the LIV golf, and we leave it take its course. It will take its course. But you overall, Derwynne, you would think that it's a good innovation for the game of golf worldwide.
I honestly can't see what harm it does. It just opens up another channel of people to be able to experience golf and grow the game. So to me, take the politics out of it. It's just another opportunity for people to get into golf that perhaps wouldn't.
But it's more jobs for more guys, which is what you want in your sport.
They had 2 pop concerts. As soon as the last putts were knocked out on 18, they had a pop concert for the crowd for about an hour and 20 minutes or something. Then another act came on and did another act for an hour and a half. So it's like 70 quid to go and see a golf tournament. But what they're doing is also you are there from 12 o'clock till 10 o'clock at night, and it's an overall experience. A bit like a bit like the Super Bowl type situation, which is not what we've all grown up with, going to watch Man United play and 90 minutes and go. That's not what we used to. But no. I think anything that actually brings a different angle to golf can't be bad, can it?
No.
Yeah, I think it's great. They used to do that here, and they probably still do, but it got huge, so they took it to bigger cities. But they called it the Run Hit Wonders, and it was a $5 at 10K that you could run, and then at the end of it there'd be a big concert, but also spotted around the course as you're going would be bands that had one #1 hit, and you could stop and listen to them as you went from place to place. And it was just a whole experience, getting people out running and then getting people together.
Do you think there's a place, Chris, for it?
As I said earlier on, I said earlier on that a real good pal of mine he's deep into the golf industry. He's a golfer, yeah, but he's in the golf industry. You know, he came back, was raving about it.
Yeah.
And, you know, he's an old fart. It's traditional. You know, if you're going to wear shorts, you should have long socks. All that. He comes from that side of golf.
Yeah.
And he actually thought it was a fresh, you know, breath of fresh air coming into an arena that, let's face it, is really stuffy, isn't it?
Yeah. And Chris, what do you think there's a place for it to be established, and we'll put all this behind us?
Look, it's established. It's there. I mean, the only concern I have about it is that there will be casualties from the initial guys that have started, because there are names there at the moment who are there to make up a field. And I think that if you do get guys coming over from the established European tour and from the USPGA tour, then I think that some guys who in the beginning would have risked a lot by joining this would be just cast off. I just hope that they've got a contract signed where they're guaranteed maybe a year or 2 or 3, because as I said, my main fee, because maybe they may increase the field in Portland. I don't know. We haven't been told this. The initial thing was it was a 48-man event and they were going to keep it very restricted and it'd be only 3 days, no cuts, whatever. But if you're going to get the big names coming over, then somebody's going to be cast. The little man's going to be the little man who basically took a chance on joining this. He kind of says, right, you've done it, you've done your job. Now move aside. That's my only concern. That's my only concern.
I think anyway, I think that the LIV golf, there's overall, I think it's a feel good factor about it from all the ones I've seen, all the commentary I've seen, you know.
Well, I put it this way: it's like to me, it would be like if you get 2 companies in the same business, and I think it happened a couple of years ago when it was TNT and FedEx became the one. So you're going to have redundancies there in the fullness of time, and I think this will happen in that the people who joined, who are not the household names, like maybe the Richard Brand, maybe the guys like Peter Uline who didn't really make it after as an amateur, that these guys are there now because it serves the purpose for Live Golf to start. That if you see Patrick Reed and you see DeChambeau, then who's going to be the guy that's going to tell Peter Uline and Richard Brand thanks but no thanks?
They won't tell them because
they probably will.
No.
I'm wrong,
No,
but that's my fear for these guys, that they've given a lot. They've sacrificed a lot to join this.
They did,
yeah, and they'd be the ones who won't be allowed back into the mainstream golf. That's my fear for them.
There's people on the PGA Tour, Derwynne, as you know, for donkey's years who've never made a cut.
No, but the point
PGA doesn't give one damn about those.
Yeah,
people.
but yeah, that's fine. But the point I'm making is this, right? Is that if you've got fellas who have probably waded up and sought legal advice on what's the best way to do and join this, and then, listen, we're all expendable at the end of the day, whether you play soccer, golf, or anything. Once your number's up and once you're not required, they will drop you like a hot potato. It wasn't right. It was Roy Keane that says they will treat people like pieces of meat. That's exactly what they are. Well, I just fear for the guys, and it's genuine concern. And I mean this in the nicest possible way, that these guys, golf is a merit sport. You have to play to a certain standard. The better you are, the more you earn. And I just feel that if these guys could be forced to make way for the bigger fish coming.
This has been 10 to 15 years in gestation, and I think that
we'll see.
They have an awful lot of the bases covered from what I saw on all the.
Well, if Derwynne thinks I'm wrong, he can prove me wrong. I have no problem with that, but that's just my main concern for these guys.
I think it's a fantastic innovation. I think it's fantastic. We have the opposite as we spoke in the program earlier in soccer, where there are miles, as you said, Joe and Derwynne and Chris, too many competitions, too many meaningless competitions, in soccer. And now you have this, which I think a good shake. That's all we say. And we'll see what Derwynne, we wish Dragonfly Golf every success. And you can have a nice cold orange juice with plenty of ice in it. And thanks to Derwynne, thanks to Joe, thanks to Chris, thanks lads for being with us on the final whistle. And until we meet again, take care and good night and good luck.
Take
Thanks,
care,
guys.
everybody. Take care. Thank you.
Yeah.